Welcome back to 6-Minute Math, where we turn confusion into clarity 6 minutes at a time. Thank you for joining us today for our video on factoring complex trinomials, the extended version. Make sure you are subscribed to 6-Minute Math for more tips, tricks, hints, and hacks to help you along with your math journey. As we are doing an extended version today, we will not have a time limit. So let's jump right into our key points. Our key points when we are factoring complex trinomials is that we are first going to create a factor u of that a times c value. If you are unfamiliar with a factor u, be sure to check out our video called What is a Factor to help you along with that process. Once we create that factor u, we're going to find two numbers that add or subtract to that middle b value. At that point, we have a little bit of work to do, but then we will create our binomial factors using our variable and each of the values that we have found previously. I find complex trinomials are best shown with an example, so let's check one out together. We are going to factor 2x squared plus 9x plus 10. We have our a, b, and c values, and our first step is to create that factor u of a times c. 2 times 10 is 20, so we have our factor u for 20. Then we are going to find two numbers that add or subtract to that b value. In this case, we are going to look at that operation before our c value to tell us whether we are adding or subtracting. Because we have an addition sign before that c value, we're looking for two numbers that add to 9, which are 4 and 5. At this point, we are going to split our 9x up into two separate terms. So our 9x is going to split up into 4x plus 5x. This is now where the grouping happens. We are going to factor our first two terms as a group, and then we're going to factor the second two terms. So we factor 2x squared plus 4x. Our greatest common factor is 2x, and we are left with x plus 2 as our binomial. Then we are going to factor our second two terms. At this point, we can pull out a positive 5, again with x plus 2 as our binomial. At this point, we're almost finished up. We are simply going to create our binomial factors by factoring out whatever is in our brackets. So we have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2. We're going to factor that out together. That becomes our first binomial. And whatever I have remaining, 2x plus 5, becomes our second binomial. Let's do some examples here together. We're going to factor 6x squared plus 11x plus 3. We're going to multiply our a times c for 18, and we have our factor u as follows. Now we're looking for two numbers that add to that middle b value, 11, and I do a quick scan of my factor u, and I see that I'm going to be using 2 and 9. So we are going to split our b value up into 2x and 9x. Both of those are a positive, and then we can drop our a and our c values. At this point, we're going to group, so we're going to factor our first two binomials together. The greatest common factor of 6x squared and 2x is a simple 2x. And I have 3x plus 1 remaining. I'm then going to factor our second binomial, or the last two terms. I can factor out a positive 3, and I have a 3x plus 1 remaining. At this point, I have a common binomial here in my brackets, which will become my first binomial factor. And I can circle these remaining two terms that can be combined for my second binomial. 3x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. Let's check out another example here. We're going to factor 8y squared minus 2y minus 3. We have our a times c of 24, and I have a factor u for 24. At this point, I look at this operation, and I'm finding two numbers that subtract to that b value. I'm going to throw my difference in between the two numbers here. So this is going to subtract to 23, 10, 5, and 2. I'm looking for two numbers that subtract to 2, which is going to be my 4 and my 6. So I know this negative 2y is going to split into 4y and 6y. And I just need to figure out which one's positive and which one's negative. I know that my b value is negative, which in this case is going to make my higher term negative. So I'll have negative 6 and positive 4y. I drop my a and my c values. And now I factor by grouping. So I group my first two together, and I can factor out a 4y. And I am left with 2y plus 1. I'm going to group this second two terms together. I'm going to factor out a negative 3, and I'm left with 2y plus 1. At this point, I can pull out my binomial in my brackets because they are the same, making my first binomial 2y plus 1. And what do I have left? 4y minus 3, giving me a final answer of 2y plus 1 times 4y minus 3. Let's factor 12x squared plus 14x minus 6. 12 times 6 is 72, and I have my factor u for 72. This negative in front of my c value tells me I'm looking for two numbers that subtract to my b value. So again, I'm going to write the difference in between. We have 71, 34, 21, 14, 6, and 1. Quick scan tells me I am going to be using 4 and 18. So I split my 14 up into, let's go 18x and 4x. And we determine which one is positive and which one is negative. The 14 is a positive 14, making my higher number the positive and my lower number the negative. Let's drop our a and our c values, and let's factor by grouping. I look at 12x squared and positive 18x, and what can I factor out of that? I can factor out a 6x, leaving me with 2x plus 3. Let's check out my second two terms there. What can I factor out? I can factor out a negative 2, leaving me with 2x plus 3. and then I can factor my binomial out from both of those terms. 2x plus 3 becomes my first binomial factor, and 6x minus 2 becomes my second. How about if I'm factoring 4x squared minus 10x plus 6? 4 times 6 is 24, and I have my factor u. I look at the operation in front of my c value. It is a positive, so I'm looking for two numbers that add to 20 or to my b value of 10. 1 plus 24 is 25. 14. 3 plus 8 is 11. And 4 plus 6 is 10. This tells me I'm going to be using my 4 and my 6. I split my b value up into a 4x and a 6x. And to make it equivalent, both of them will have that negative sign. I drop my a and my c. 4x squared, positive 6. And then I factor. 4x squared minus 4x. Well, I can take a 4x out of that, leaving me with x minus 1. And what can I take out of negative 6x plus 6? Well, I can take out a negative 1. Sorry. I can take out a negative 6, leaving me with x minus 1. I have a common binomial here in x minus 1. That becomes my first term. And I have 4x minus 6 as that second term. How about if I factor 9x squared minus 12x minus 5? 9 times 5 is 45, and I have my factor u. My c value is a negative, telling me I'm looking for the difference. So we have 44, 12, and 4. I am looking for that 12, which is going to be 3 and 15. Let's split my 12 up into 15x and 3x. I now need to figure out which one is positive, which one is negative. Because I have a negative b value, my higher number is going to be negative, my lower number positive, and then let's drop that a and c. I'm now into the grouping stage, so let's group these first two together and factor out a 3x, leaving me with 3x minus 5. I look at my second group of two terms, and I see what can I factor out of 3x and negative 5. Well, in that case, I cannot factor anything, but I do have to take something out, so I'm actually going to take out a positive 1. This is going to leave me with 3x minus 5, creating an equal binomial factor that I can finish my complex trinomial with. I'm going to take out that 3x minus 5, and I'm going to be left with 3x plus 1. We have a couple more examples here. Let's factor 6x squared minus 23x plus 7. 6 times 7 is 42, and I have my factor u accordingly. I'm looking for two numbers that add to that b value of 23. So let's add these factor u's together. We have 43, 23, 17, and 13. I'm looking for 23, which tells me that 2 and 21 is what I'm going to split my term into. This is going to be negative 2x and negative 21x. Let's drop that a and c, and let's group. 6x squared minus 2x, well, I can take out a 2x, leaving me with 3x minus 1. And in this case, I have negative 27x plus 7. I'm actually going to take out a negative 7 as my greatest common factor, and I'm left with 3x minus 1. Let's take out that common binomial of 3x minus 1. And what do I have left as my second binomial but 2x minus 7? Let's factor 9y squared plus 13y minus 10. 9 times 10 is 90, and I have my factor u. My c value operation tells me I'm looking for the difference to get to 13. So let's do the difference between all of these factors. We have 43, 27, 13, 9, and 1. I'm looking for it to be 13, so I'm going to use 5 and 18. We're going to split that up, and I'm going to put the 18y first and the 5y second. I have a positive 13y, which tells me my bigger number is going to be positive, my lower number negative. And then I drop that a and c values. 9y squared and negative 10. And now we group. 9y squared and 18y. I can take out a 9y, leaving me with y plus 2. And if I factor negative 5y minus 10, I actually can take out a negative 5, leaving me with y plus 2. Let's take out that y plus 2 as my first binomial factor. And I'm going to have 9y minus 5 as the second. On to our last example here. We have 10x squared plus 19x plus 6. 10 times 6 is 60, and I have my factor u, and I'm looking for two numbers that add to that middle b value. So we're going to do our sums on the right here. We have 61, 32, 23, 19, 17, and 16. I'm looking for it to be 19, so I have my 4 and my 5, which I'm going to split my 19 up. Sorry, 4 and 15. Let's put our 4 first. We have 4x and 15x. And then we drop our a and c values. 10x squared, positive 6. Let's group here. 10x squared plus 4x. Well, I can take out a 2x, leaving me with 5x plus 2. And in 15x plus 6, what can I factor out? Well, I can factor out a positive 3, leaving me with 5x plus 2. I have a common binomial factor here of 5x plus 2. And what am I left with? 2x plus 3. Those are all the examples we have today for factoring complex trinomials using the grouping method. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok at 6Minute Math, and be sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below for any topic you want to see me tackle in a future 6-minute episode. Always remember that the best way to get math is to practice math, so keep on practicing. And until next time, keep solving and evolving.